Hello, and welcome to Lost Without Translation Goes to the Movies. In this new series, we watch and review foreign movies.
We're going to go through a lot of foreign movies that didn't come out over here that most people have never even heard of. We got some crazy stuff lined up, and eventually we'll dip into some subtitled stuff that you can get here that's maybe a little more accessible. That's still worth going into. So enjoy. Today we're going to talk about a movie we saw called Tag, or in the Japanese, Ryaru Onigoko, which is a Japanese movie by Sion Sono. It was one of 6 movies he did last year, and the trailer was pretty intense, so we had to check it out.
Yeah, the movie was released in July, on July 11th specifically in 2015. And we were lucky enough to be able to catch it at the Toronto After Dark Film Festival. They had a Sion Sono night where specifically Sion Sono films were shown. Tag was one of them, and we were lucky enough to see it
Love and Peace
with subtitles. Love and Peace being the other one.
Yeah.
I missed that, but you saw it.
Yeah. And we were lucky enough to see it with English subtitles, which for this movie makes all the difference, but we'll get to that.
Very much.
Sion Sono, at this point, is probably one of the quintessential modern Japanese directors. He's done a ton of stuff. Like we said, he put out 6 movies this year. He's putting out multiple films every year, and a few of them come over here. He started making movies in the late 80s, but he really grew in popularity in the 2000s when, he started submitting to lots of film festivals and got quite a few awards for his different movies. He's best known for movies like Suicide Club and Love Exposure, and there's another popular, Why Don't You Play in Hell is a popular movie he did.
So the novel the film is originally based on actually revolves around a character named Tsubasa Sato. He's pulled into a parallel universe where there's a game essentially of murder tag going on, where the Lord of the Land chases down people with the last name Sato and kills them. In the real world, meanwhile, investigators are trying to figure out why people with the last name Sato are randomly dying.
The novel was originally adapted into a film in 2008 as Ryaru Onigoko, the same name as the novel, or The Chasing World. And it did so well that they made 4 sequels to it, Chasing World 2 through 5, and also made a 12-episode TV series called The Chasing World: The Origin. What struck me as really interesting is that, the original book, it seems to be pretty similar to Battle Royale, and the plot of the second movie revolves around the survivors of the game becoming a rebel group to fight against the people who are behind the game, which, is essentially the exact same thing as Battle Royale 2.
What's interesting about Sion Sono's adaptation of the movie is it actually diverges quite drastically from the novel plot. There are elements which are still there, specifically the tag game, but the way in which it manifests itself is very, very different from the novel's core. Most notably, I would say probably the fact that the main character is actually female versus the main character in the novel being male. Now, I know that seems kind of trivial, but the way in which it plays out in certain themes throughout the movie actually has a very big impact.
It's said online that Sono was inspired only by the name of the book itself, but I think in truth there's a lot more similarities between the book and the movie, and while it does have a different cast and a completely different storyline, there's enough that Sono wanted to take inspiration from the book and make an adaptation that was completely his own, and he had approval from the author to do that. The trailer had me pretty excited for this movie, but originally I wasn't sure what to expect. I had only seen Suicide Club by Sono, and it's a movie that, again, looks like it should be something like Battle Royale or in the same vein, and ended up being a very metaphor-rich, surreal movie, almost David Lynchian, that doesn't make too much sense on its own, although going back, actually, there is some interesting things there that do give it a bit more weight in terms of its actual plot. But I was worried this movie was going to go the same way. But I was still excited to see it just based on the trailer.
Yeah, my only exposure before seeing this movie was the actual trailer for the movie. I knew nothing of Sion Sono, despite its popularity. And I thought it was actually going to be... It ended up being quite different, but I thought it was going to be almost like a battle royale, but with middle school aged girls running around playing some sort of tag where they kill each other. Interestingly enough, there seemed to be a tagline in the movie, or in the trailer, which said something along the lines of, "Screw girls, you're done with being conceited, your time has come to pay the price" type deal. So
全国の JK の皆さん、あなたたちはちょっとふてぶてしいので少し数を減らすことにします。
I didn't know what to expect. I expected it to be a little surreal, but in kind of the horror kind of slash fest kind of way.
Yeah, it was very, like, the trailer made it look like it was going to be a balls-to-the-wall action survival game kind of thing.
Yeah.
With, some kind of, men versus women themes in there.
Yeah.
But it ended up being something else, which is cool, but different.
Definitely.
Tech follows the misadventures of Mitsuko, who is a sole survivor on a bus in which every other passenger ends up brutally beheaded with the top half of the bus by a violent force of wind, which proceeds to chase her down as she runs away. Once she's sure the wind isn't chasing her anymore, she changes into a school uniform she randomly finds and ends up at a different school where everyone seems to know her, and she has friends that know her well, but she has no idea where she is or who these people are.
From there, the movie goes into some very interesting scenes where Mitsuko, the main character, continues taking on different appearances and ends up in different situations where everybody seems to recognize her, but she does not know who they are or how she got there or how come she looks different or is a different person with a different name.
Overall, I think it was a really enjoyable movie. I'm happy we saw it. It wasn't as simple as the trailer made it out to be, but it also wasn't the David Lynch Lost Highway crazy surreal thing I was expecting from the write-up we read about it. So overall, yeah, I really liked it, and I would totally see it again.
Yeah, I have to agree. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I would definitely recommend it to people. There are going to be parts, like speaking to the David Lynch side, there are going to be parts of the movie where you're thinking, what the heck is going on? But it's one of those movies where it's worth sticking it to the end, right? Sometimes you get into that space, you're like, I don't know where this is going, and it doesn't pay off. I feel this one pays off. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. A lot of, even though it was nothing like the trailer, very enjoyable in terms of like excitement, enough kind of keeping you guessing, if I can say that. And I liked in the end that even though it was kind of a fun, actiony horror movie, there were some actually kind of deep themes underneath, really. There was some subtext and some very interesting statements on society.
Yeah, for sure. It's perfect what you say about the end, because a lot of those movies that I have problems with, like Lost Highway, like Suicide Club, is that you sit there for 90 minutes or longer, you watch a movie and you get to the end and it still makes no sense, and so you gotta watch it again and go through it in your brain, think about it over and over, and
maybe do some research.
Yeah, do some research and see what other people think. But
now I understand it.
But I feel like this movie, it doesn't tell you everything, but it gives you enough to know what's going on and what's happened and why these things are occurring, which is a big selling point.
Yeah, I think despite I shouldn't say all of it, despite some of the weirdness during the movie, the end payoff makes it worth it.
Yeah,
it follows through.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess would you recommend people see it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think I would recommend this to everyone, with the caveat that there's a lot of blood. Really?
Yeah.
That's the only person who might not enjoy it.
Well, I think what I think makes it important is if you can end up seeing it with subtitles, right? Because I don't think it holds up. It is going to be a bit of a really confusing piece to watch without that. And
it is visually entertaining at points, but if you want the full story, you need the subtitles.
If you want to see some cool action scenes or some cool horror scenes that are ridiculous, then definitely. But then you're gonna have to, be piecing together. Well, really, there's two key pieces of dialogue in the movie that really explain what's going on, and so if you miss those, you're not going to really know what happened, and you're going to be left saying, "What the hell?" But as for where you can see it, I don't think it's available anywhere right now at the moment. Some of Sion's other movies are available on iTunes and Amazon digital services like that. So hopefully, it's fairly new still. It's less than a year old. So hopefully, when those
pick it up,
hopefully some distributors pick it up and everyone will be able to see it. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the review. Hopefully it piqued your interest about this movie. We're going to dive right into some spoilers now, so anyone who doesn't care or has seen the movie, we're going to go a bit more in depth on it. So stick around for that, and if you are going to wait for it to come out, then you should probably turn off this video right now.
Yeah, of course. If you don't want to see the spoilers, stop watching.
So, I'm going to need some notes for this, because this movie has a lot of stuff. Let's start with that bus scene. How ridiculous is that?
Yes.
You have no idea. Like, the trailer showed some of this action that happens later on. But
then opened up, like, that was not even... that's like a minute into the movie?
Yeah.
The first 60 seconds?
And it just opens with...
Imagine a helicopter flying upside down and then cutting a bus in half.
Except you're trying to figure out, what is it? Like, no, this can't be the wind. It's not really the wind. And you get the little, like, whoosh and stuff as people are getting cut up. But so basically, right, the girl bends down to pick up a book or something she dropped.
Yep.
And while she's down, everyone else on the bus gets, like, I don't know, is it just their heads or their torsos?
I think they get cut in half, like, because the torsos are there, I think, right?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, what a way to open a movie. And so I love that it's like, oh, this is crazy freak occurrence, like X-Files thing. She escapes, but she's not safe yet because it's coming back for more.
Yes.
So it chases...
Doesn't it hit other people who are like, other people walking up the road?
Right, she keeps telling other people, like, run, and they don't know what the hell's going on, and then they get cleaved too. And then she finds that other school uniform, which I think is actually pretty symbolic of her changing clothes, right? Like early on.
Well, she runs into the woods.
She runs, yeah.
She gets ready from the wind, and then she comes across a number of other students, but they're dead through other means. They haven't been cut in half, right?
Oh,
they're just dead. It looks like maybe a mass suicide or something.
Or something, yeah, interesting. Yeah. I forgot about that part.
And she takes one of their uniforms.
Right.
And that's how she ends up with a school uniform.
Right. And it's a bit of a foreshadowing, because at this point, even when she gets to the new school, she's still Mitsuko. Or Mitsu, what's her name, sorry?
Mitsuko?
Yeah. Right, so it's only later on that, she starts changing, but that outfit change was kind of the first transformation.
Yes.
So she ends up at this school where these other girls seem to know her, but she doesn't know who they are. And so they all decide to cut class together and go have a fun time in the woods.
Yep.
And they end up by this creek, and I forget, they're just messing around. I don't think they're really doing anything. And all of a sudden, they just get into these deep philosophical debates, which I feel like was natural. I don't remember the exact scene, but I feel like it was a fairly natural transition from we're silly schoolgirls to... Fate is...
Hey, what do you think about the future?
Yeah.
And, maybe your fate's predetermined.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes from there.
Are there multiple personalities? And then it's one girl who I think is like the rebel girl.
Totally.
Who is like, no, fate is predetermined, but you can change it by doing something insane, right?
Yes.
And actually she might even... I'd have to see if I can watch a subtitle version again. I think she might even recommend, like, use as an example what the girl does at the end of the movie, which we won't even get into yet. But I don't remember.
I don't recall. There is something along those lines.
Hey, if you
something
kill someone,
drastic.
Yeah, then that's how drastic of a change it needs to be. Basically, just do something that fate would never expect you to do, and you can get out of it. So then they go back to school, and they're all happy from their skipped class, and everything's going well. And what could go wrong? And then there is a scene that I don't think you could even have you couldn't have it in an American movie, not in this day and age. But the Japanese, they're a little cooler about that kind of stuff, I guess. Basically, the teachers go crazy and start killing all their classes. So in the middle of class, teachers whip out these, I don't remember if they're assault rifles,
yeah,
which is crazy.
I think one of them has a grenade launcher.
Shotgun, yes, yeah. Which is also crazy in Japan just because of how hard it is to get guns over there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's why it's kind of something that is so viewed as so fantastical. You can put it on film.
Yeah, maybe.
Whereas here it's a little more close to home or a little too realistic. But yeah, so the teachers just start wasting everyone. Students are dying. They're all running to get away.
Mitsuko manages to escape.
Yeah, she's out of the school. She's running with a bunch of other students. And this is the great scene from the trailer where, the voice comes over the megaphone taunting them. They're all running, getting gunned down from behind. And at this point, what I love about this point is you're supposed to think now that the teachers are, these weapon-wielding adults are the main source of, trouble.
Yes.
But then the wind comes back, too, and starts slicing people up, which is just crazy.
Yes. Now, I don't remember how she escapes that situation.
I think she just runs. I think this.
And then she runs into a city, and then that's
she's
where
got
it
like
gets
a Run Lola Run kind of vibe to this movie.
Yeah, she does a lot of running.
Keep running.
There is a lot of running.
Yeah, keep running, and you'll get away with anything. And so I don't remember if she passes out or whatever. But then the next is the wedding scene. So now it's the first official transformation. She's a different person under a different name. And her friend is, maybe her friend isn't there right yet. I feel like she doesn't.
I thought her friend is the bridesmaid.
Maybe some of her friends are the bridesmaid, but like her one true friend, if you want to call it that, like the one friend who always saves her, breaks in later.
Her guardian angel.
Yeah, so she's about to get married, and it looks like a happy day for everyone until she sees the groom, who's got like a boar head, I think.
Yes.
He's got an animal head, and it's disgusting, and that's when her best friend breaks in.
You're right.
To save her.
Doesn't everybody start laughing at her too when she finds out?
Yes, you're right. Yeah, everyone's laughing at her. It's one of those they're all gonna laugh at you moments.
Yeah, little Carrie moment going on.
And then she gets saved by her friend, who starts kicking everyone's ass, and they're all pissed off at her. Everyone becomes violent in this scene.
Yes.
But she manages to get away.
Escape yet again.
And all of a sudden she's running a marathon. Or is she in a police station? Maybe that's before or after the marathon.
I think the police she actually hits before she gets to the wedding. Doesn't she run into the cop, and the cop's like, "You're late for your
wedding." Maybe, yeah.
Takes her to
so that's how they introduce her as a new character, yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, as the marathon, now she's a completely different person. She looks different too. So again, if you weren't watching this with subtitles, you'd have a real...
Who is this? What's going on?
What's
Who is this
character?
person?
Yeah. And that's actually why I compared... I was really worried about this movie when I read about that, because Lost Highway is maybe the most confusing movie I've seen in my life. And I refuse to go back and try and figure it out. But it's one of those, like, people change to, like, it's Bill Pullman at one point, and then all of a sudden he's a woman who's a completely different actor in a completely different place. And it's this movie of, like, subconscious changing. It's just confusing, and I don't care enough to go see it. But that's what I was worried this movie was going to be. Because, again, the actor is changing, the names are changing, and yet it's supposed to be the same character.
Yep.
So there's the marathon where...
Again, it turns into another kill fest, I believe. Are people trying to kill the marathoners, including her?
Yeah, they just start getting killed. I forget by who. Maybe it's the police. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, people start dying all around her. And again, her friend...
manages to save her.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing that we didn't mention is all the people, like not all of them, but all the main characters in every scene are the teachers and the students from the school.
From previous scenes.
Yeah,
yes.
And they keep reoccurring as these villains
respawning,
or heroes. So then her friend finally tells her, they get away, and her friend tells her she's been changing worlds.
Yes.
So she has to accept that she is Mitsuko, even though she's all these other characters as well.
Yes.
And when she accepts that, she returns to her original form, and now the original actress comes back and plays her.
Yes.
But in order to get to the final world, which is really the first big hint that this is a game,
yes,
she has to kill her best friend.
The same one who's been helping her the entire time.
So she manages to do that, and she wakes up in the men's world, they call it.
Yes.
Which is where all the kind of everything starts to come together. She's been in this world where it's implied that there are no women left in the world.
Yeah.
And people are fascinated with this virtual game called Tag. It's a violent game, but it's not necessarily all violence. But it's definitely a female-oriented violent game.
Yes, she actually sees a poster of the game with her face on the poster.
Yeah. That was a cool scene, yeah.
Yeah.
And she meets the creator of the game, which admits to her that he stole her DNA back when she was in high school.
Along with many of the other characters which she saw recurring in each level.
Yeah, and he's using clones of them to kind of participate in this game. Now, I'd have to watch it again. It's kind of unclear if they're physical clones that keep getting killed.
Right.
Or if they are just virtual
clones.
Representations of them.
It seems to imply, though, physical.
It really does, because I think there are tubes later on where you see her bodies.
Yeah.
So then I guess the question is, when she's in that game, are the other girls getting killed and replaced by new clones?
Right.
Or are the people in those versions of the game virtual representations of the clones?
Right.
It's hard to know.
Right. It's not critical to the story.
Not really. It's just one of the unsolved mysteries. Again, the movie's not going to answer everything.
Yeah.
So the creator, who's this really old dude at this point, and I would guess because he says it's been 150 years, he's maybe cloning himself to live longer.
Yeah, maybe.
Or they've just extended life at this point.
Yeah.
So he wants her to have sex with a younger clone of himself.
Yeah.
That's the last level. And he says it's the fulfillment of one of his desires. So instead of doing that, he basically talks to her like she's a game character. She has no choice.
Yeah.
And instead she attacks the young version. I don't remember if she kills him, but she attacks him, and then she kills herself.
Yes.
And it starts this cycle of her being reborn in all of the stages.
Respawned in each of the levels, yeah.
And in each one, she instantly kills herself, basically refusing to play the game.
Yeah.
And then she wakes up at the end in this field, and, it's over for her, and she gets up and runs away. And if that means that, her last clone is now alive and free, who knows?
It's kind of inconsequential, right? She's found freedom, regardless of whether it's symbolic of an afterlife or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Which, interestingly enough, actually back to when we were talking about the themes in this movie, when you see that whole thing the entire story as a whole, there are so many themes in terms of like control, misogyny, violence in video games. I would say male-dominated violence in video games.
Yeah.
There's just a ton of themes, and it's actually really neatly done that there's such an interesting movie and then so much substance to it on top of the fact that it's really a very pretty
for sure
movie.
Yeah, the themes are really apparent at the end, which are really neat. There's so much and I imagine there's a ton that's just very Japanese cultural focus that we can't really comprehend, but there's a ton of how women are expected to behave a certain way in different cultures.
I would say that's not just Japanese.
That's not just Japanese, but there's a bunch of, specifically with Japan, I think the way that those like otaku gamers, super hardcore, fall in love with 2D girls gamers treat women or like that, right? And I think
objectification.
It's a real, and there's a real nice kind of relation between, I'm going to make this ridiculous gore movie, and you're going to come see this ridiculous gore movie, and then at the end, I'm going to make you kind of feel bad that I perpetrated so much violence against these women, when all they want is not to be killed, really. That's really about it. Check it out. If you haven't seen it, definitely worth seeing if you can get a hold of it. That's it for this review. Mike?
I'm Cam.
Thanks for checking us out. Next time, we got something fun lined up for next time. I don't want to spoil it, but we got a great movie lined up for next time. Hopefully Sarush will be around to see that one.
Yep.
Check it out.